First of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you for the Selenium conference itself, for finally getting people together in one place to see each other's eyes, to speak, communicate, building networks, and that's like, I would say that's awesome. For me as a speaker who's like speaking up to 12 or 15 times a year in different locations, stayed home for 2.5 years was like devastating. So again, thank you Selenium conference, and let's just warm up your hands a bit. Good. So let's start with my presentation. It has a bit different name from what you saw on the schedule, but still about the same numbers. First of all, I will introduce myself, and currently I'm in title of the head of the testing products within the company named EPAM Systems. Have any one of you heard about the EPAM? Good. I'm based on the East Coast in New York area. I just like recently moved to United States and started to build my name here on the new land, because there was kind of a pretty good traction back in my like Eastern European region of the planet. So while I'm being almost like 16 years, more than 16 years of the experience and all the practice of the test automation, DevOps, all this stuff, I mainly focus on the building of the accelerators and products which are related to the AI and ML capabilities melted into the process of the testing and the test automation itself. And I do contribute into the community through like regular speaking at the different events, at different level of the stages, and also driving own conference related to the test automation and DevOps. It named the DELEX conference, which stands for the Delivery Excellence Conference. You can also track me on the LinkedIn, on Twitter. Some good thoughts may appear there, so like read that on liability only. In market titles, I should that should be sound as CEO of the Report Portal solution. Some of you maybe heard about it, some have not. But unfortunately, since we have work in a big company, which is more like 65,000 engineers across the globe, the title CEO was already in use. So I have to pick something else to be in this organization. Anyway, here's the portfolio of the tools, just like to give you the background and understand what is all those things are about. So this is the tools I'm working on, including the conference itself. And Report Portal is, let's say, kind of a flagman of all this portfolio, which we'll kind of talk about through the quality gates, is actually the AI-powered test automation dashboard, which helps you to aggregate the test automation results across different types of the testing. And we use the machine learning to categorize your fails instead of your engineers. So kind of build the visibility, traceability, consolidation of your testing efforts, do the work instead of you with the ML, and return the feedback back to your CI/CD pipelines. The next one is in that portfolio is the Drill4j. This is the tool, open source tool, which gives you the possibility for the test impact and test gap analytics to kind of unify, and by means of the test to code mapping, we build up and suggest you the minimization of the regression. Let's say just 2 out of 1,000 test cases which should be executed in order to verify the code change made by the developer. Something super relevant to the WebDriver and the Selenium and current conference, the Selenium. It's kind of mix of the healing plus Selenium, and this library or like extension stands for the self-healing capabilities by using the, again, ML-ish type of the algorithms to self-heal your WebDriver-based test cases right at the runtime. So we use it to analyze the actual elements on the screen which should react and replace the locator right on the fly, suggest you the correction in the next go. The tDiaspora is a big one. This is the only one which is not open source, and not sure never will be. It's kind of the way to use the ML to train a model based on your production data, then grab this model, put into your non-production environment, and by the means of the generation from this model, we mimic production data inside your non-production environment, which is super safe because it's synthetic data. There is no any attachments to the real data, but it mimics all the characteristics of the actual data you have in production. And QA space still, like I would say, it's at the sunset of this and migrating to the portion of the report portal capabilities, but it's like extension to drive your test case management within the Jira. Didn't put much of the expectation on it. And the Deluxe conference itself, which I mentioned, maybe will appear on the US market any day soon. Okay, so the more I do work on all this stuff, the more we build capabilities, the more we melt down one to another, the more those tools interfere in something bigger. And I assume that on one day we're going to introduce some sort of the test ops platform which will have those all capabilities, mix it together to give you the full tool set to drive your test automation in one single entry point. But today, like, the goal of our talk is actually the quality gates. And now, any one of you in the audience who have heard about the quality gates, please raise your hands. Not that much. Okay, then the super complicated question. Who of you have heard about the quality gates with no relation to the Sonar Cube? 2, 3, 5. Good. Okay. And the reason why, because the quality gates is not only the functionality which Sonar Cube shows us, and I will explain you through my story why it is not. What is the quality gates? The quality gates by itself is a kind of the checkpoint within your delivery process when you want to verify that your product or code change or increment fits into the criteria which you predefined for your, let's say, quality terms of your product. So no matter what you do and run the new and every next build which appear within your pipeline and kind of pre-build through the pipeline, you want to make sure that at every given moment of the time, these quality gates are met and satisfied. So that is, again, quality gates, a checkpoint with the predefined set of the criteria at the moment when your product is assessed against it. And the benefits to have the quality gates in your project, in your CI/CD pipeline, like next. Pretty obvious to have the improved quality. Again, Captain obvious, but still, at the end of the day, it helps us to improve the quality. It also helps to identify issues much earlier than it can appear within your process of the development and verification. The increased efficiency, the increased communication between the teams, it's sounds a bit yucky, but still it's pretty important because now teams has the solid basis for the discussion, like why this build goes to the next stage and why it's not. Then, of course, the reduced risks, faster time to market, and my loved one is actually informed decision making. What it means that now everyone in the team, like your QA managers or stakeholders, can make data-driven decisions in order to propel the build to the next stage and basically sign up to go to the next stage. Quality gates can be split into two biggest sections. One of them is non-functional and another one functional. So for the non-functional, it's, let's say, it's everything which is related to non-functional testing. It's security, performance, environment stability, even just an execution time of the entire regression is your non-functional requirement. The trick is that the Sonar Cube does only that. It only verifies the quality, code quality. So it kind of helps your code not to smell and do the static analysis of the code. It has nothing to do with the rest of those capabilities, and that's why you should not mix the quality gates with only those little narrow thing which Sonar Cube proposes here. On the functional side of it, and that's basically the story of my talk today, is the way when you can use and utilize the data of the, let's say, functionality of your application to be verified with your expectation and predefined criteria of the quality for your product. And it includes, for sure, pass-fail rate, the stability of the particular component or the functionality, or maybe even the user flows. Now let's see, and maybe you can suggest me, what is the most popular form of the quality gate checks we currently have at I would say, the majority of the projects? Any ideas here? Static code analysis, like unit tests. What was that? None. Close enough. Super close. And actually, like, due to the nature of the work I do with the report portal and other accelerators within the service company, we interact with like thousands of different projects and clients. And based on my own experience, the most popular form of the quality gate is the emailable report. So this is the form of the quality gate. Then somebody like from your team, your testers collected the results, they send the email to the QA team lead, he collected results, luckily he will copy something from the Jira to share with you, and then send this email to the manager, or like release manager, or the delivery manager to say like, we did great, like everything is tested. And what's the problem about this form of the report? Because he's the manager. Work from home, it's already Saturday, and geez, I was expected to get it on Wednesday. No way I'm gonna spend the time on it, just approve. And it sends this mail back to QA team, or like pre-build. The QA lead at this time, no chance he's gonna work on a Saturday and pre-build your build to the next stage. He like basically ignores it, and maybe somebody will catch up this information on Monday. Good. Here's another pretty popular form of the quality gates. And I would say it's a step up, it's the next level, but still there are some issues with that. What's the main problem? The cost of this conversation. I mean, it's very good to have the conversation when all related stakeholders are like getting together and have the checklist from every single team to verify what is the quality, did we meet the criteria. The problem is the cost of this conversation. I mean, like at the moment when you spend, let's say, 2 values of your mortgage payment, usually this guy shows off. He just said, why we spend all this time on the call? Let's just send email next time. And to some extent, he's pretty damn right at this point. The reason why, because those decisions should be automated and made automatically rather than spending time on the calls and negotiations. So, as we found out, the most popular forms of the quality gates are emailable reports and the checklist calls. What is the good part about them? They do exist, at least. What is the downside or the drawbacks? People factor, first of all. Like people lazy. People do mistakes, and all of us are being heavily pushed by the production timelines, by the release, by the time we already announced the feature, we need this being released in the next week. So being under this pressure, we just forget about something sometimes, and goddamn, let's just go. And it actually makes it a choice game, or like, what's the right name for this man? It's kind of choice bomb, whatever. So we just will either release or reject, and for sure people just take its chance and try to release it without any actual data-driven decision and understanding what is actually with your quality at this point. And with this talk and this size of the regression, which I mentioned, 2100, I want to explain how we had the experience to build up this process from the ground up and establish it with the, to make it possible to make smarter decisions for the stakeholders at the project. So again, when you want to build those quality gates, they should exist not only at this testing stage, but also at the moment of the build, at the release, at the code commit made by by your developers, and even after the deploy, that should be verified within your infrastructure. But now we're focusing on the testing stage, with the 200,000 of the test cases. Does anyone of you have anything equal to that in regression? What is the biggest number you have, guys? 6,000. Good. So it's a bit bigger than that. 10. 16. Now, this is really a huge machine. Well, it didn't appear on one day. There was a progress for many years to build up from like 100 test cases to 200,000 of the test cases. They are most of like data-driven test cases. So when you implement a test case, you can fulfill different options of the data and generate more test cases out of it. But still, that's a lot. Just to give you the understanding, that's like 63 days in a row to execute in one line all those test cases. And since those test cases been related to the physical environment, there was a testing of the hardware in combination with the software. There was a limitation in the amount of the virtual machines and how you can parallelize this work. At the end of the day, all these zoo have been managed by 550 CI/CD jobs in Jenkins. Just imagine the nightmare to work with all of that. So good, but what are the main challenges you can meet at this scale? First of all, that's analysis and managing of all these efforts. The analysis of all the failed reports is a nightmare, and it's huge because you have to look in every single fail to either trust or not trust of those results. The next one, the automation status tracking, because at the end of the day, you need something to aggregate all these results in a single place, analyze them, look through them, make sure you still executed at least all of them. And the next one is the automation maintenance effort, because at this scale, even a little change or kind of error which appears within the testing framework itself may break the entire architecture, the entire structure of all the test cases you have. And if you fail with any of those within your journey, that brings you to the dark zone, the unreliable test results. And the problem with that, if people start, let's say your dev team or the rest of the team will not trust the test automation results, it usually will be split into a separate sub-process where it will live own life without actual influence on your quality of your product, which at the end of the day, a sunset of your test automation. So to some extent, I cannot go with the details and the names, but because all of that is under NDA, but the problem, the reason of engagement with that was actually the decision to sunset the entire scope of the test automation and just kill it. And that's wasting the money, assuming at this scale. So how you can work with that? How you can resolve it? And usually when we have a regression set, the only thing we want to do with that, just run the regression and get the result. So here's our regression, here's our passed and failed test cases. Good, we're lucky to get it done. But the problem comes when as soon as you have this multiply scale, many types of the components, integration, end-to-end, bugs and issues retested, etc., etc. So I usually say there is no way to eat the elephant in one piece, but we can slice it and start to eat piece by pieces. Same we did as well. As soon as we started that, we started to split those test cases in a little chunks to be executed one by one. And there is a very little trick which helps a lot. When you have this test automation framework at this scale, you also should be sure that every single form of your framework, or let's say the abstraction layers, the classes, even navigation menu should work for you. Because if it fails at the scale of the entire set, it's a waste of the time. So the only thing you can do as a start is basically verify that your first chunk will not fail, which will be a chunk to verify your navigation across the application, the consistency of your abstraction layers, which actually the abstraction for all the dialog forms, for all forms of the buttons, clicks, and etc., etc. Because if it fails, everything the rest will fail. If it passed, there is a little chance that the rest of it also will be passed to some extent, but we never know. Okay, so as soon as we can verify that this little chunk was executed, we can build a very little but still very powerful quality gate check. Let's assume that we need 100% of the passing rate for it, so which means that this quality gate will fail for us if the overall failure percentage more than 0. If you flip it, that's 100% of the passing rate. And we want to have at least X amount, let's say 100 test cases, which we know is related to the verification of the main methods. Good. As soon as we have it, we build a little verifications within those small chunks of testing, in order to get the answers. As soon as it's established, we can now form the parallelization and start to execute it one by one with the dependency within the logic. And as soon as you have it, you build like a next level, next level, next level, and as you remember, there was 550 of them. No chance I will draw them all on the screen, but you got the point, right? So we can form this cascading flow of execution of different chunks with the verification that one to another, like it works, and can jump from one to the next scope. What is the challenge at this point? Consolidation of testing results. So as soon as you have this amount, you have to put it somewhere. And we use Report Portal for that as a single entry point for all the test estimation results. And no matter what type of the testing framework you have, no matter what platform and language, it all will go into Report Portal. It will be shown in a consolidated, unified form. So which means that Python-based API test kit will look the same as JavaScript end-to-end test case itself. And then you have this standardization, you can work with this data. Now, the next step. As soon as you have all this data collected, you have to do something with that. At least you know that nothing is missed, everything being executed, and everything is here. Here comes the next challenge, and we call this process like triage. Or you also can know it as the analysis. The goal here to go into all your failed reports and understand why they actually failed. Because if you have the test estimation with the failed reports which nobody checks, what's the point to have this test estimation? Just like cut it out and forget, don't spend the team effort, don't burn the money to work with that. So as a QA lead, as a manager, as a person who is responsible for the testing, you want to know for sure why those failed reports are actually failing. And we assume three main groups on it. Like, here's the product bugs, here's automation issues, and here's system issues, or like environment issues. And that's a good chance to verify how many of them fail because this, that, and those. Because your actual ROI, your actual return of the investment, and let's say the value of your test estimation, are the product bugs. Those test cases which are finding product inconsistency rather than failing because of the misconfigured environment or maybe just like broken locator. So again, the goal is to categorize each and every failed test case within your test execution reports. And now you you feel yourself very aspired because you have all this in one place, the team has the tools to work on that, and your expectation that your team will work with the results, something like that. Take a look at each and every test case, they are happy to find that why it's failing, and they do categorization associated with like product automation issues. In reality, they do it like that. And when we started to ask like, what's the point? I mean, what's going on? Why? They usually say, well, there are a lot of known issues already. I know that it have been failed yesterday, why I have to spend it today. I know it's the same issue and blah, blah, blah. Another one like, oh, I see that the multiply fails because of the same reason, so most probably the rest of the suits fail because of the same. Just don't waste the time on it. I know, like, I worked 8 years here, I know everything. Done. And another one just like, it's boring, literally. I would agree with that. And one more thing I heard from the guy, he told me, well, I actually paid to implement test cases, but not look into the code, into the logs. Let me do my job. I won't spend the time to look into the reports anymore. Hire somebody to do so. Well, anyway, so as soon as you have it inside, we think like, how we can struggle with that. And one of the ideas is go get some brains. Well, we actually decided to go another way, and we use the ML to categorize those fails. So basically, we bring in ML capabilities to read the data and train the ML model based on the fails you have in order to categorize those fails instead of the engineers. The results of this categorization is next. So first of all the known issues already categorized automatically, and the team don't spend the time to look into those which already known, and you're sure that's like you have this solid evidence that those being categorized because they know already. Another one, the all unknown issues will be grouped for the bulk analysis, So if you have 500 fails, and in case of 200,000 test cases, if you have several thousands of the failed test cases because of the missing login information, with the ML, you just can do it in, let's say, 2 clicks and verify all of them. Another thing, team currently focuses on the new fails mostly and do not spend the time to review all of the existing issues, which is good because now you you test your application. I mean, like you look into the new fails and can give the feedback to the development team. And release effort, which team currently do not spend on the verification and like reviewing on known issues, they can focus and redirect on the implementation and improvement of the test cases itself. So basically pay off the debt, your technical debt here. And as soon as it starts, this part which is related to the test automation usually starts to melt down pretty quick. The next stage, and I love it the most, it's related to the management level. As soon as they start to see, as soon as they get this visibility into how many fails team has because of the unstable environment, they just, gosh, what we were doing? $20 right there. Go get some, I know, like South Labs and have it run. And literally, it happens every single time in most of the projects we see. As soon as the managers have the visibility into that, they realize that we need to improve the, provision the environment and convert those test cases failing for nothing into the test case which finally will test your application. Good. So this part also start to melt down. There's a little chance that it will go to 0, but it never appears as a 0. Anyway, we made the triaging process done, and now we have our fails categorized. Not only just here's your red report, but you know how many of them: product, automation, issues, and subcategories, which you can add into those groups. The next level of our quality gate here brings us, let's say, a next grade of the smart decisions. So we can bring the decisions like, if the percentage of automation issues no more than 3%, we're probably good to go to the next stage. If, for instance, the percentage of critical bugs, or let's say, this quality gate will definitely fail if the amount of the critical bugs across product bugs found, and it's more than 0%, we fail this gate. So you can form the decision based on the actual data you have across your test automation. And now comes the next level. I would say this is the most costly from the effort perspective, but it gives you a more detailization which you'll never achieve with anything if you don't do it, let's say. So this is the injection or enrichment of the attributes for the test cases. What's that is actually adding the attributes, tagging your test cases with the actual flow and value what you do. I mean, build the traceability between your requirements and the test cases. And it's that easy. I mean, just add those attributes, and now you start to receive this information along with your test automation report. And now you know that here's the flow of your, which is related to the admin part, the component, etc., etc. So goal again, establish the traceability. The way how to achieve it is actually adoption of some portion of the documentation as a code practices, which will help you to make it. Just ask your team to follow this best practice and do not accept the code change or increment of the from your test automation team if it doesn't have the attributes added. So just make it a part of your definition of done for the test automation team. As soon as you have it inside and inject it, it actually brings you those forms of the capabilities which look like that. There is some dummy animation it made for the in the sake of safeness if the internet will go down, but I probably can switch to the application itself. So what it shows actually here that now taking all your test automation together, all those results and reports, when you have those test cases tagged, you now can slice it and see what is the actual, what is the feature we are testing and how it is doing across the execution, what are the priority for the test cases, what is the scenario, how many of them fail, and blah, 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 blah. So you have all this information now. I should show, I worked a lot on that, so it does click, then move the hand, click. Awesome, right? But let me show you the real application. Please expect some delays because we are under the VPN connection, and it's not like supposed to work that slow. Yeah, so here's the report portal itself. As I mentioned, all these test automation results sent here will be visual to you. Like you will see, including all the structures like test case, suits, subsuits, test cases. Let me drill down, for instance, into the selection of the failed test cases. Again, this is slow because of the VPN. And here I see the last step of my hierarchy. I can go down into the test case itself. I see all the logs. It's collapsed into the useful logical steps to see with the attachments, what's actually passing, failing. So basically all the logs here. The history of this execution available at the fingertip. And the goal for the engineer is actually, as I mentioned, to make a decision on top of that. So in one click, I open up the editor, which shows me the form of the selection, so I can choose what type of the actually fail I have, and that's adjustable to the workflow. Here on the top, we see that ML already suggests that there is an equal fail with 97% of the equality in the history of previous execution. So somebody did equal already. And I can just click apply and done with the analysis for that particular test case. Now, at the level of the test cases, let me just go there. As I mentioned, there is a way to add the attributes. Let's go to this selection here. So you also can see that there are attributes which describes what was tested. I mean, it's a pretty dummy data. I cannot show you production data at this point, but you got the point. So as soon as these attributes added into your test cases structure, you can build such wonderful things like a visualization of this data. Like I will skip the part for the trends, metrics, KPIs, and different stuff, and let's say aggregation of the data on the build basis. But now we go to the those component structures, right? So now we can see what is the feature, and we see that it's failing at the payment section. What is the priority? It fails for the P1. What's the operational system? It fails for us on Android and iOS, both of them. Go into that. The payment is failing, and there is a product bug. And now I can just jump into it and verify what is actually what's happening there. Again, it's slow because of the VPN. I have to be connected to keep the Jenkins up. Here's this test case, which failed in accordance with that. I go into the details. I see that the test case have four retries happened at the level of the testing framework. There is a stack trace. There is a previous execution made by the team members. And I also can, we do have the integration with the source labs, so I can also click and see the data out of the source labs execution with all the details, commands, and everything those guys have inside. So that helped me to verify why it was actually failing, so I can make a decision again on top of that, or post the bug right from these screens into the bug tracking system. And this level of the detalization helps you to build now I will go back to my slides. We'll skip it to that part. Jump. So as soon as we have those level of the attributes added, now we can enrich the quality gate with the detalization. Like for instance, we don't want to accept the more than 1% of the automation issues which are related to the component payment, right? Or we don't want to accept any, let's say, product bugs which appear within the test cases with severity trivial. Or let's say, we will accept no more than 2% at this point. If it's more than that, the quality gate will fail. And this detalization and this information gives you opportunity to, and even one more, I forgot about this. If you have a new failures appeared in API, then fail. So you're just tracking that there is no new issues appeared within your executions. And with this information, you kind of have a new dimension for the detailization and decision making on top of your test automation. So which means that now your failed reports can be converted and let's say distributed along the product automation environment issues, and you see why they're actually failing. And the next dimension is actually those attributes which describes the functionality of flow or anything which is important based on your testing framework or process. And now you can build those kind of metrics of the relations where you can accept automation issues, where not, where you can accept product bugs or environment and what type of that. And this can be a variety of the combinations based on what you follow up with your process. At the end of the day, it gives you a very data-driven decision what's going on in your test automation and how you can go to the next stage and that. 5 minutes left. Hold on, we will speed up. So here's like back to our cascading process. We will zoom up a bit into it. And the goal here, again, first chunk, quality gate passed, jump into next. Quality gate passed, jump into next. Then execute the next sequence. And all that built within the Jenkins itself when we have the quality gate returning the feedback from the report portal into the CI/CD tool. It just returns you not a regular passing rate if you have like 100 test cases and 100 of them passed, but that will return you the actual go-no-go decision based on the detailed information. So as soon as you have it, that helps you to build this sequence and use this information at every single level. From the technical perspective, how it happens. As soon as the execution started, the integration will generate a webhook, save it on the side of the report portal, and as long as it executed and aggregated and completed on the side of the report portal, it will verify these quality gates on the side of the report portal and send the response back to the pipeline. Let me just briefly show you how the quality gate look at the side of on the screens of the report portal. So here it is. This little triangle right there, not a triangle, but a square, that shows now that in one case the quality gate passed, in another one failed. Despite the fact that we have 100 total test cases and 100 of them passed, we see that the quality gate failed for us because it didn't meet the list of the criteria we have. And it was a pretty easy one, but we expected 300 test cases being executed, but it failed because it's just 190. Also, that was the amount of the test cases with attribute blah, 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 we don't have it. It also failed. So it's pretty flexible and configurable at this point. And this little symbol here means that the results have been pushed back to the Jenkins itself. And on the Jenkins side, by the way, here's the job which corresponds to that example. Despite the fact that at all stages it have been passed, including the testing itself, it have been failed at the stage of the quality gate check, which returned a failed state and failed the job by itself. So that is it, guys. Thank you for listening. Here's the link to the report portal itself, and here's the links to my personal LinkedIn, so do not hesitate to follow and read all my thoughts at your own liability, please. Thank you a lot. We're ready for the questions.
You are, I'm not. First of all, I just want to commend you on doing post-test analysis of data that already exists rather than what everyone else is trying to do in the world, which is try to replace the tester at the beginning of the process. And analyze after it's done.
Well, maybe we're going to go in this direction as well, but we have to,
You started in the right place.
Yeah.
So my question is regarding what you've built up. 1, what's your release cycle? 2, how many automation testers are involved?
You mean in the report portal specifically, or within the example?
Within the example.
Within the example.
With the 200K test cases.
Yeah, so it started with around, as far as I know, because I joined it not at the beginning, but there was maybe like 6 engineers. Then there was a big mistake made that client decided that QA engineers, the manual engineers, can also write the code. So they added 6 more manual engineers to do the not a good job. There was 12 at this point. Then they've been pushed up because they cannot do the work properly. And at the peak of the moment, there was 16 test automation engineers, and overall store of it maybe like 8 years. So all that have been developed in 8 years.
And what was the release cycle?
Release cycle of the product itself?
When you were running these tests?
Well, it's a good question, because initially the overall scope, let's say, to run the entire regression testing, it took like 12 days plus 12 days more to analyze, and like nobody trusted those results. At the end of it, the decision was possible to get within like 21 hours with all this amount.
So report portal, what is the backend? You're storing a lot of data. So
Yeah.
what is the backend?
Well, it's a pretty intense application. Please do not compare it with the regular HTML reporters you may use at your project. It's a high-load application, microservices-based, which has the Postgres SQL database as the main storage and Elastic as for the log storages. It can be scaled in the cloud. It uses serverless functions to support the sub-procedures. But yeah, it's a Java-based, microservices-based application, ready for the high load.
Great, thanks a lot. If you do have 200,000 or 15,000 test cases out there, I want to just come meet with me afterwards. I want to show you on your keyboard there is a button that says delete. I want to show you where that is because you've never seen it before.
Good plan.
And,
Yeah,
and
just
make
to
sure-
give me, please get me right, guys. Report portal can be fit even if you have 100 test cases. Like the more test cases you have, the more benefits and value you have from it. But you can start with let's say a super minimal and still bring all those benefits at the scale.
Thank
Good.
you, Dmitry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you have to talk to him afterwards, but I think we're out of time here. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dmitry.